Hey, Matt, were you with, were you ever with PWSI or was it just VDA or what?
Just VDA.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You were with, it was VSA though, when
So
you guys
VSA.
merged.
So in 2015, we created VDA. So I came
Right.
into VSA in 2004. Me and Mike Culliner, we co-founded VDA in
Right.
2015 between the two clubs. And then obviously
Gotcha.
over the last 8 years, I've had numerous roles from coaching, boys director to technical director of both programs to probably more of an advisor now for Mikey and Matt, who are obviously our ECNL directors. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a long 8 years, but a good 8 years too.
Yeah, I grew up in that club. I was a PWSI kid. That was obviously long before VDA was a thing. No academies or anything. Everybody played high school soccer, and soccer was a lot different in the '90s up there. But it's cool to go up there and still see Howison and how
Yeah,
much that's grown and developed. And I was a Hilton High School kid, so it's I tell people because we had that scrimmage with Hammond Sydney at Howison, and it's always a cool thing. And I like to tell the story how my first ever job was at Howison. So I was with me and my club teammate Reese Foster Simeon. Everybody knows Ed, and we were watering those fields, and they were all grass at the time. Not the best grass, we'll call it okay. It wasn't. I think Chin and Tyrell, those were probably the best fields back then.
yeah,
Nice grass. I think Bermuda. I don't know. But the grass at Howison was not very good, and we had to hook up these huge pipes. I mean, massive pipes, and I think we had maybe 2 rows of them. And then the pipes had these inserts for sprinklers, and then you had to connect it to the fire hydrant, and we turn it on and let it run for like 20 minutes and then turn it off and have to move these big pipes that are now filled with water.
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure my first paycheck came in, it was like $16 or something like that. I think I was getting like a $2. And my dad was on the board at PWSI at the time. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm young. I don't really know labor laws, child labor laws yet, but I'm pretty sure something's going on here, man. So I'm glad you have turf. It's beautiful turf. It's awesome now. You don't have to water those fields, but yeah, I miss being up there. It's fun times, good club, and it's cool to see VDA growing and
Yeah.
turn it into such an awesome part of the state.
No, it's Howison. I mean, they've got some great plans for Howison as well.
Mm-hmm.
The county, they had a bond referendum, so Howison, Helwig, that side of the county ended up getting a good investment. So I think stadium feels on its way. I don't know if you've been to Long Park, but Long Park has changing rooms, obviously like a office space. That's going to be basically replicated at Howison too. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a phenomenal facility for development. So yeah, we're really excited.
Is there any way you can move those two facilities closer to each other?
I
Because
know.
that is
We need. I'm
quite
trying
nice.
to. Me and Quad are working on getting something right between.
Yeah.
That's the goal. The goal, but it costs a lot of money in Northern Virginia. So
Oh yeah.
we're going to find a way, though. There's a way somehow.
Yeah, that's tough when you go up to your showcase and you're like, oh, I want to go watch this other game. You're like, oh, it's at the other facility.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that could be an hour. You never know. So
So one of the unique things in Prince William County with working with Parks and Rec is that we have some great facilities, but all of them none of them are connected. So
right,
again, even like if you look on that side of the county, you've got Howison, and then you've got to go. What is it? Two. Well, I don't know. It always feels like an hour, but it's probably only 30 minutes. But they get to Ali Krieger Park, right?
right.
That was a good old drive. And on the other side, obviously, Long Park and Cat Harp in there that we've just put in on this side can
Right.
still be a bit of a distance. So
Well,
hopefully,
Prince William County itself is huge. I mean, it's such a big
yeah,
spot of land, and I mean, you're talking 95 and 1 and 20, I mean, all these big roads that are intersecting through it, and so
yeah,
it's definitely not easy. And there's a lot of people up there. I try not to visit my mom too much. She lives in Stafford now. She's not. We were living, right around the corner from Forest Park High School, and she moved a little further south to Stafford. But that's just as crazy now. It's just as busy up there.
yeah. It's a different world. I was in Richmond originally before I came up here, so
Mm-hmm.
I've had to get used to a different pace of life, and it's crazy up here. But I love that part of it. Actually, it's super
Yeah.
competitive, and obviously a lot of good players as well that are in this area. So it's for all the craziness, it does make for a great development platform. So
Absolutely.
we enjoy it. We all enjoy it up here.
So Matt, you started VDA 8 years ago. So kind of back into, how you, what your kind of coming up story is, and like obviously you're not native to Virginia. You came from somewhere else, and so talk about how you ended up over here. Your youth career, and then how you ended up over here.
So I grew up in the northwest of England originally. So my whole life was in academies. So I started Crew Alexander Academy. They're a League Two, League One yo-yo team. And then at 12, my dad moved, so I ended up moving to Norwich City. I was within their academy, set up until the age of 19, made a few appearances for their reserve team. And then obviously I got released, and I had kind of like this year of figuring out what I was going to do. So I was playing for a club called Kings Lynn. I think they might be Conference South now, so it's relatively a good level of football. But obviously, being an 18, 19-year-old playing men's football, it's an interesting experience. So I was fortunate enough to. My friend really wanted to come to America, and a guy called Chris Wally. Obviously, I know he's in yeah, everyone knows Chris Wally, right? He's at Chuan now. He was watching him, and him and his dad were watching, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come to America?" So I literally just kind of trusted Wally. He told me I was moving to Charlotte, and I ended up in Banner Elk, North Carolina, at Lees McRae for 2 years. So I played 2 years at Lees McRae, and then I'd always done USL, PDL. This is kind of how my Virginia connection. I played for Richmond Kickers, PDL, and obviously played with a lot of Division One players. So I was originally meant to be going to Covington, and then there were some issues that occurred. So I ended up going to Winthrop because Phil Hinson, he basically was the assistant coach. I think he was made the head coach at Clemson. He said, "Oh look, probably a good fit for you to go somewhere else at this point." So I ended up going to Winthrop with a guy called Rich Posapenko, called him the gaffer. Went there for 2 years, and then I'd had everything set up to play for Richmond Kickers, come back, play for the pro team with Lee. And unfortunately, I had a knee injury right at the end of my college season, and I had surgery. They said the good news is you haven't tore your ACL, but you've done it was a cartilage injury, and I ended up being out for 2 years. So in that 2 years, just started coaching for Chesterfield United. I tried to come back and play for Richmond Kickers about 2012, but at that point, I had a daughter and obviously had a career with Chesterfield. Did that for another 2 years, and then VSA in 2014 reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in coming and being our technical director?" And at the time, I really wasn't that interested in it. I was quite happy in Richmond, and drove up one day, and obviously you see the facilities that VSA had. Obviously, the club was not a good club at the time. They were struggling. I just felt it'd be a good challenge to be in that area. So I went up there, and honestly, within a week of being at VSA, Mike Culliner, he said, "Hey, do you want to meet for a coffee in Richmond?" I was still living in Richmond and commuting. We just started talking about this idea of, Prince William County being connected, and what do we feel? What do I feel about the Development Academy at the time? So I did about 6 months of kind of going in and out of PWSI with their academy. Travelled to a few showcases with them, and then just decided, look, I think this would be a great thing not only for VSA, Prince William County, but also just for myself. Selfishly at the time, it was like, okay, it's a great way to be exposed to a higher level of youth football. So that's really how it started, VDA, and obviously gave me also accelerated my career in youth development. Because obviously you went from Chesterfield United coaching against Beach FC's B teams to now coaching against DC United in New York Red Bulls. And, so we had kind of like a 2-year period where it was just, I would say it's chaos. So I'm building VSA and VDA at the same time. So I was the boys academy director, coached teams for VDA, and our environment at the time was very, I think you spoke to Joe, right? It was very kind of like cutthroat because in them days we had 3 teams to get the next age group. We got to make sure that oldest age group were winning. So that's how we ended up with a club, is by winning a lot of games at youth level and maybe prioritising that a little bit too much at times. Obviously, you live and learn. But yeah, basically we kept doing well, ended up with a full DA boys pathway, 13s through 19s. And then obviously we were like, oh, we need a girls program. So the DA came out with a girls program. Luckily, we were able to get into that. After a year in that, we decided ECNL was going to be a better fit for us. Moved to ECNL with the girls. And then obviously we had like a 2-year period just before COVID where we kind of like settling into everything, getting our processes, our player development plans down. And then obviously the DA folded, COVID happened. So we kind of like restarted again, I want to say. COVID was good for us as a club. We kind of figured out our level, figured out the right staff. And obviously now we're in a really good position with obviously our girls. Just got top 25 in the country for ECNL. The boys finished in the top 50. So again, we're really proud of the work. Specifically, Matt Rao does with the boys as our boy ECNL director, and Mikey Welsh with the girls. So yeah, that's kind of where we've got to now and where I am with the program. And like I said, my role technically is technical director, but honestly, them guys, I'm just supporting them and helping them and advise them and then go to games and provide feedback to help them continue to improve, and whatever they need me, I'll help. But, we've got phenomenal staff doing a great job.
I wasn't expecting a Chris Wally reference, 9:30 in the morning here.
Most of my Chris Wally stories can't be online.
Yeah. He's a legend. He's a legend around here. He's the Lions Bridge they play on campus here.
I coached DC United's under 23s in the summer. So Wally invited us up for a game. And it was really kind of a surreal experience standing alongside him coaching.
Yeah.
I always joke with these guys, and I step into your world just for 2-3 months in the summer with obviously these college level players. So it was a great experience. I would love doing it, but just him, he has not changed one bit. Absolute madman. His enthusiasm for football, winning, is no different. And what I say with Wally is just when I played for him, I mean, me and him, butted heads all the time. Just type of very similar, probably personality in terms of like winning.
Yeah.
But we always had that in common. So, again, just I don't know, maybe it's about Chris Wally, but I mean, without him, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
He really gave me the opportunity, and it was nice to finally really to be with him in an environment, and then obviously say thank you, because he's been a big part of my life. So
yeah,
madman though.
He's the legend around here. They love him. Got to the national championship game this year, fell short, but I'll tell you what, they do a good job. Those Lions Bridge games are fun.
I want to say 3,000-4,000 people at this.
Yeah.
It was great, and you could see the environment as you come in. I brought my little boy with me for the game, and he was just amazed by all the things that were going on, and a great thing for that community. So,
oh yeah, no, they do a great job. No, it's an awesome thing. I love going to the games.
So Matt, obviously, there's been some transition from having a development academy to I guess the higher levels went to MLS Next. I kind of lost track of the timeline, but now the higher level kids are playing ECNL. Maybe talk about that transition and how you kind of had to follow the ever evolving world of youth soccer and how you address that as a club.
Well, I would say obviously it happened so quickly, right? So COVID happened, like literally whatever that date was, March. I say it was March 15th, March 20th. The DA's folding, right? So you're dealing with trying to keep your club afloat, and then you're trying to deal with what league you need to be in. So at the time, I would say in a unique way, all the clubs in North Carolina and South Carolina in the DA decided to kind of stick together. There was obviously a lot of conversations going on. I didn't specifically know there was going to be an MLS Next, But we decided, look, we can keep these core clubs together. Obviously, ourselves, Richmond United, Arlington, Loudoun, NCFC, Charlotte, Charlotte Independence, NC Fusion. It didn't really matter what the league was, right? So the league we're in was irrelevant. We just knew we had good competition. Again, obviously, I think for us and our staff, it was kind of, you feel that you need to be playing MLS teams, right? In terms of it's encourages players maybe to want to play for you more, and it's maybe a carrot for them. But I want to say over time, and I had this conversation at an ECNL meeting recently with their leadership, has been the best thing that ever happened to VDA, because what we did is stop worrying about really, I'm trying to put this in the best way, worrying about competing in a league that we're not in. We just worry about making the players that we have better. So our environment has improved, our culture has improved, which has really increased our levels of retention and increased people wanting to come and be part of what we're doing. And that has nothing to do with the league. The league is irrelevant. Now, what does ECNL provide? It provides a real platform for the players. So the reality is, obviously, we're talking about the 1% of VSA and PWSI with VDA. And out of that 1%, maybe 0.001% may be a professional. So the platform for them kids are to go and play college. So ECNL, I feel, provides the best platform for them players in terms of the showcases, the national selection program. So it was the best thing that happened. I don't know if we deliberately thought that was going to play out that way, but the transition has just made us better in general with everything that we do. And again, obviously, development is our number one priority. If we have the right development platform from the ages of 9 through 19, we will develop players to go on and play at the college level. And again, we have 3 or 4 players who are playing professionally who come through the club. But we're just as proud as a player committing to, as you say, the lowest level of college soccer as the highest level, because it's a hard journey for them. And again, now we focus on their individual journey versus honestly worrying about, can we beat New York Red Bulls at the weekend, which again sounds crazy, right, when you think about it, but that's what we were living in that world, going, okay, well, we've got to beat New York Red Bulls. Well, not really. We need to make sure we develop players that can go on and progress at the next level. So now, obviously, it's very development focused. I don't want to be naive to say, look, we want to win every game that we play. The objective of playing football is to win. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to get players to the next level. And again, especially Matt on the boys, so I would take that very, very serious. And obviously, periodization, curriculums, monitoring, match analysis, supporting them with the college process. We spend way more time on that than we did in the past. So again, it's been the best thing that happened to us. Obviously, the girls have that platform already. I think it's just transition to, and I think ECNL each year is just getting better in terms of the clubs that are coming back, and the clubs that are already in it are obviously seeing a value in obviously that platform. So yeah, overall transition, probably the best thing that happened to VDA.
I hope the transition, I love it, by the way. I love what you guys have done. And I hope that it stays for a while. It seemed like for a long time there was a bunch of jumping. When I played, we were in CSL.
Yeah.
And then they joined with the CCL, and DA became a thing, and now ECNL. And then this MLS Next thing pops up almost as soon as the ECNL, like, oh, it seems like this is awesome. Let's go with this. It's been great. Then all of a sudden there's MLS Next, and now there's a lot of people like, oh, do we need to make that change? And I love what you just said. I wish that everybody just kind of get together like, hey, here's 20 awesome clubs. Let's make sure we're all talking to each other. We're all in the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's just make sure we're all in the same league. Are we all happy here? Cool. Let's just stay right here. I'll tell you, as a college coach, that makes it a ton easier for me when it comes to recruiting and finding the best talent. So I love it. I hope you guys stay for a long time. I hope they all stay for a long time. It's been fun to watch. The level's been good. And I'll tell you, the VDA kids that we've brought in, have always been ready. They've always transitioned to the difference of the college game rather quickly. And, so we're definitely appreciative of that. You guys have great coaches. Joe Seuss was my coach actually growing up. And, now I golf and have some beers with him and we tell different stories. So it's a lot different than when he was coaching me. But, it's a lot of great guys that are up there. And I think that overwhelmingly, this is the biggest difference I've noticed in soccer from when I was playing in the 90s to when it is now. We had a few good coaches in the 90s, but I feel like there's so many good coaches now. There's so many guys that grew up playing at a pretty high level, even if they didn't have the best coaching, that are now becoming coaches themselves. And there's just a lot of options for coaches, especially up in Northern Virginia. It's a nice saturated area and a lot of talent. And so it's been fun to watch. You guys have been good. How has the season started for you guys? A few games in and
yeah, good. I mean, we had obviously everyone cancelled the past weekend, which was a bit bizarre. So we didn't have games on Saturday. But again, I didn't make that decision. But we started. We had 2 local games. So on the boys, Fairfax and it was Virginia Union.
Okay.
And they're good starts. Obviously, I always say this in our area. It doesn't matter how good, bad these teams can be, right? It's a local derby. So everyone, maybe not the staff, but the players, they probably don't like each other. They want to win, and there's some, local pride within them games. So, them games are just brilliant from a development standpoint, right? Because you've got to go out and compete. And if you're not on it, you'll get punished. Now, again, there may be teams that will go and play in North Carolina that might be the same level, maybe not very good or whatever, but there's just not the same, like, I want to say, nastiness or aggression,
right,
desire for them games. So again, it's a really unique thing for us in this area because you're playing 4 or 5 local derbies and league games, so could go either way in a lot of games. So they're exciting, and again, that's something you talk about transition. We went from playing only Arlington and Loudoun to now we're playing 4 or 5 teams locally, which makes them games super competitive. And so it's started well. Joe's now like our senior coach. He's an assistant. He's a phenomenal guy. And me and Joe and Quan as well, we drove up and down the East Coast building BDA games, and Joe has a job here for life. Whatever he wants, he has it. Supports everything we're doing through thick and thin, and you can't go wrong when you got good people. And, Joe, Matt, Mikey, and Elvin on the boys' side. Just great group of coaches to work with, and they do a phenomenal job with the players.
Well, that's definitely true what you're talking about with the competition. One of the things, just to kind of jump into recruiting here, when I go to a showcase, one of the things I've noticed is it's not a super, I don't know how to phrase this, but there's nothing on the line other than the showcase. Like, yeah, of course the boys want to win. We're all pretty competitive, but there's a huge difference for me watching VDA play, Minnesota. Yeah, you go to that VDA Loudoun game, there's crossover. Some of those kids go to the same high school, especially the older kids. Maybe some of them are already committed to rival colleges, and you can just tell there's something else there. It's something else. I mean, I love going to the one-off games. I think you play beach soon. I'd love to go down there. It's a good age group, the oldest ones at least. So like there's something there. It's the in-state team. Richmond in the oldest age group won the national title. I bet you cannot wait to see those guys. And I want to watch you play them because there's something more on the line than just a bunch of college coaches, scouting you out, and you're at a showcase, and there's just more to it. It was one of the best parts about recruiting when I was early in my career. The State Cup was incredible. The State Cup was something fun. I mean, people got after it. I think, Matt, you might have been there. I remember looking one year, and there was a PWSI team, I think, in every bracket. I know on the girls' side for sure. And, I prefer those games. I love those games. I wish there were more events where there was something on the line more than just a showcase, a trophy, something there that you can go play for. Definitely, you can tell a difference in those games than versus just a normal showcase event.
Yeah, and I can obviously ask me a question about the transition, right? obviously we're preparing the kids for college now, right? And, and I'm not saying that we weren't. I just think the focus was developing more. Okay, we've got to get kids to the professional level, right? So now we're coming to ECNL and we're focusing on ourselves. So then games become more college-like as well. Is that the style of play becomes slightly different? Within our state, the boys are learning to adjust and adapt to different teams. Obviously, the expectation within the league table, especially, as soon as you get to 16, 17, 19, we're playing to win. We want to win the league. We want to qualify for the national event. So them games are very, very meaningful. In the DA, we didn't really have that because in our conference was New York Red Bulls, New York City, DC United, Philadelphia Union. You're not going to make the playoffs. There's 5 spots. So them games were, we said they were meaningful, but these games are really meaningful. And again, we want to make sure that our training environment is connected to the game, to the weekend, which is what you guys are doing, right? That's your day to day with college, right? You're preparing your players to win a game at the weekend. So again, with 16, 17, 19s, we're already getting them into that mindset that, okay, well, we got to work hard, obviously a given, but we got to prepare to play against this. And this is what you're going to come up against. And, we're going to make sure that we're ready for these games. And again, you just mentioned them 3 games, Beach, Richmond United, VDA. I would say they'll be top 3, 4 in that under 19 conference at 06.
Sure.
So I think there's only 2 spots to make the playoffs. So they're going to be some games. And our 06s, they were a little bit unlucky last year not to make the playoffs. That's a very strong group. So, them games where everyone gets excited for them. So, yeah, and again, like I said, what a great platform for these kids when it comes to college. If they're playing big games that actually mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead, Cheese.
No, I'm agreeing. Spot
on. So Matt, what's kind of your guys' process in, intentionally developing kids for, kind of on a, not a day-to-day, but, an overarching theme of how you're developing kids and what mindset you're creating within them. And, what's your focus through the week and that sort of thing?
I mean, from a philosophical standpoint, it starts with character, right? So we have a club DNA, outwork, outcompete, outplay. So we start with that, and that starts at 6, 7. So if you come to PWSI, VSA, and this is where we work really closely in Zone 1, I would say this is where mine and Quan's role has really adjusted. We're spending a lot of time between the ages of under 9 to under 12. Training, if you come to watch a training session, I mean, it's ruthless. Young kids flying the tackles anyway, and then we're encouraging that. It's chaos. It's organised chaos. So again, we're encouraging players to work, compete, fight. We've gone maybe back in time in the sense of what are values we want our kids to be at 19? Well, we want them to compete. We want them to be able to mentally be able to win running, which sounds such a small one. But how many kids go to college and they can't deal with the physical element of it, the athletic element? So we're adding that into training. So if you went to watch a 9, 10, 11, 12, you're going to see a heavy focus on technical. You're going to see a heavy focus on 1v1, 2v2. And you're going to see a heavy focus on competing. And again, and at the end of training, US soccer may not like it. I don't know, I try to say this the best way. People who are very philosophical on development, we're doing things to push them. So, okay, can you keep competing? Young age group. So the goal is by the time they get to under 13, technically, sound, character, they can compete, and they understand the game from a decision-making standpoint. So that's why 1v1, 2v2 is so important. So they're making decisions constantly. Obviously, we teach the game under 9 for under 12s within the game. So obviously, we have a lot of game fixtures. We try to increase as many games that we can play to overload them. So we teach pressing, building in the game moment versus taking time out of training. We're developing the individual at that age group. When they get to 13 and 14, and again, unique with us, VDA, PWSI, VSA, and the kids every Monday train together. So already they know at 11 and 12 they're competing with someone to get into that 18, 18 player roster. So when Matt gets them 13, 14, they got a 4 nights a week. 2 nights are dedicated to developing the individual. So Monday, Tuesday, we have 3 focuses: dominate, 1v1, possession, pressing activities, and transition activities. So, we'll do station-based work. So every player works with every coach within the club. So they'll Mondays, because obviously more recovery because they've had games of the weekend, more of a technical focus. Tuesday we call compete night. They're there doing these 3 stations, and again, the level is high in intensity. And then Wednesday, Thursday is team orientated, so preparing for the game. Obviously, they have a 6-week cycle that they prepare. So we hit building, creating, finishing, pressing, recovery, defending the box. Topics will be done over a 6-week cycle. Reassess it every 6 weeks as a group. Plan another 6 weeks. So that's our kind of microcycle for the week. But as you get older, 16, 17, 19, obviously the focus is the game at the weekend. So 13, 14, 15, the focus is preparing them in terms of different formations, different building patterns, different pressing. 16, 17, 19, Matt Rowe coaches the major groups, they're watching the opponent, they're doing match analysis on the opponent, and then obviously they're preparing for the weekend for the game. So again, they're kind of our 3 stages. So you've got this highly focused zone 1, where it's technique, decision making, competing. 13 through 15, still focusing on developing the individual, but now we're starting to introduce bigger team tactics. 16 through 19s, can we win on Saturday? And that's similar on the boys and girls side. And that's my job, really, making sure that happens.
I love the idea of that competition day. I bet you they get pretty fired up for that. I mean, is it mostly just game related activities? I mean, is that
So basically what I did, I have 3 activities. One will be look most like the game, right? So whether that's an attack versus defense activity. But
right.
Then you'll have like a 3v3 flying changes activity. You'll have a 2v2 game going on. And I mean, again, the kids, especially on the boys' side, I mean, it's ruthless at times. But we encourage that. And again, that's another part of our job, educating the parents, right? Is when you come to training, you might get kicked.
Yeah.
You might end up in some type of confrontation, right? Because it has to be, it's a fine line, right? Teaching these kids next level. Here's one thing I will say. Since we've gone to ECNL and we've got more connected with the colleges, and I talked about the running side, is we want to spend as much time with these kids, teaching them how to be better soccer players, technical decision making within the team framework. But the reality of their environment is they're going to go into a college program and they're going to be tested on certain fitness tests. So again, we've added that to what we do. We've adjusted. I would say most of our fitness in the DA was based around within the game. Again, we spend a lot of time pushing the kids in football fitness, but again, we'll do things outside it now to prepare them for what the environment they're going to get into. And again, you can't just start preparing 6 months before. We've got to prepare 10 years in advance for what's coming if we're doing a real job. So, hopefully our kids are coming to your environment, they're resilient, they show character, they don't give up. But that's the best we can teach them. So we spend a lot of time talking about how do we add that into what we're doing and not take away from the football as well.
Yeah, it's one thing I've noticed. You mentioned Matt Rao earlier, played and coached at the college level.
Yep.
It's interesting. I was on the phone with actually one of your boys, I think it's about 2 months ago now, and we were talking about the defensive side of the game going to college. And the way he described how you guys train is the way that we want it done when they get here. And, I talk to college coaches pretty frequently. Obviously, the biggest difference once you get to college is just the speed of play, the amount of pressure you're under. I mean, some of these boys are going to be playing against 23-year-old men, some international kids that just miss going pro, at the highest levels, or, it's a whole different world than an ECNL game, even at the best ECNL levels. It's just different, 23-year-old almost going pro men. So it's different. But one of the biggest things that I really appreciated what your boy was saying. I won't mention his name, but is the defensive, responsibilities that you have put on the boys. Because I have noticed that most of the kids, when they're freshmen, I have to not teach them how to play defense. They have the foundations, they have the understanding, the fundamentals, but the desire, the necessity to get in tighter and to force them in certain directions, you don't see that as much when you're watching club games. It's usually a much more open game, a much less pressure game. And the way that your boy described it in your training sessions, and I've even seen it with that '06 group, is you teach it the way that we want to teach it at the college level. It's a different game, and it's refreshing. And a lot of us college coaches, we know that when we get a freshman, we're going to have to show, like, this is how you have to defend at this level. It's different than what you've been doing. And other than the pressure, I'd say that's probably number 2 for us of things that kids have to adjust to. So, I don't want to jump too much into tactics. I'd love to get some recruiting thoughts in here, but really, what are you guys teaching defensively to, encourage these kids, and why is it's helpful. It's doing well when they finally get to us.
So I mentioned it earlier, right? So we have these like 3 phases or 3 focuses for the developing the individual. So dominate 1v1, right? That is as simple as learn how to defend 1v1, right? Mm-hmm. So we take it from there. And then obviously, I think, and this again, you talk about transitions for us, learning how to be better. ECNL is a lot more direct than what we were used to with the DA. We played a lot of teams that would build, a lot of teams that are trying to play through you. As right. We're playing in ECNL, we're defending crosses, we're defending corners, we're defending longer balls. So what we work on is what I like to call it emergency defending, so defending the box. So Matt's really good at this, actually, and probably because he's a defender, right? We have a lot of activities where you're playing 7v7, 8v8, but then quickly we're doing a set piece, right? There's a set piece thrown in. We're doing a lot of, I like to call it 2-phase defending, right? Where you're defending a set piece and then you're defending another ball coming in straight away. So we're not, with these older kids specifically, we're helping them understand their roles and responsibilities in set pieces, delivery from wide areas, but then just taking as simple as how to defend in a back 4, who steps, who sets the line. So again, that's where Matt does a good job creatively thinking, okay, how do I do that? I've got a whole year with these kids. I can't do the same activity every time because I'm going to lose them. So, Monday, Tuesday nights, because it is focusing on developing the individual, really creative on how we teach that. But yeah, like I said, I think one of the things, and then you might know this better than me, I feel like kids, they don't know how to defend in the box, right? They don't know how to defend crosses. They don't know how to defend in the recovery phase. So, yeah, we put time and effort into that. But again, I go back to it. I think defending, you got to have character. So if you don't have character, it don't matter how much you teach them. Eventually, they're going to let you down because they can't focus for the whole period that you need to actually be successful. So then when we talk about what we're doing in the younger age groups, I mean, we're talking about slide tackles, smashing kids, whatever we need to do to change the mindset. So when Matt gets them at 13, he's building on the football side and not just having to teach character to compete. So again, I talk about that a lot, but it's a big thing for us is, again, if we're going to develop our own players at VDA, we don't really want to be a recruitment club. We've got to be doing a phenomenal job between the ages of 9 through 14. So Matt Rao, when he gets them, who's a terrific coach, can help them progress to college. I've been in a very good team. So, yeah, Matt specifically, he enjoys coaching defending, right? So yeah. It helps. So I think all our boys coaches played defence. So I think Elvin played, and Mary Washington, he was a left back. Danuso, I played with him in PDL somewhere, and he played at the back. As you got Matt Rao.
Yeah,
I think Joe and me the only ones that didn't play centre back.
Yeah, it's. I thought you mentioned a couple of good things there, talking about the character of the defense and a full 90 mindset, which is, it's interesting. My sister and I were talking about kind of, secondary characteristics when you're recruiting, and we were going by position because I think it could be different per position. And when I got to center backs, one of the first things that I mentioned was I want my center backs to be 4.0 GPA kids. and it just compare it to a forward, 4.0 GPA. And I said, I want this kid to try to be a perfect score type kid, which you have to be. I mean, if you're a center back and you're throwing mistakes in every game, well, those are goals, or they're leading to really dangerous chances. And I'm actually less inclined to need a 4.0 as a forward. I just need him to be able to knock a test out of the park every once in a while. When that ball's in the right spot, can he score the goal? He doesn't need to be perfect for 90. He needs to be great in small spots. And I would, of course, love him to be perfect for 90. But I thought you really hit the nail on the head there. And, it's refreshing. It really is. I mean, when I think of club soccer, I love the model. I love that you guys are year round. I love that you get to be with these boys all the time. And I compare it to college. My guys checked in Division III similar. I mean, D1's a little bit earlier, but my guys checked in August 15th, and I need to start winning games 15 days later. And some of these kids, I brought in 10 new kids this year. I mean, how are they college-ready athletes in 10 days or 15 days? It's just a lot to ask. And if you had a lot of turnover the year before we graduated, pretty much 2 classes, a bunch of fifth years, and my fourth year guys didn't come back for fifth years because of all the COVID craziness. And so I lost about 20 kids, brought in 10 to replace them. That's a 30-person turnover. And I have 2 weeks to start winning games. And these games matter for me getting into the tournament or not in November. And so it's such a different animal comparing college coaching and, the pathway as it is to club. I mean, you guys have a full year with these kids. It's I love the model. It's, we were just doing the math. In 2.5 months, we're either in the playoffs or not. And if we're not in the playoffs, I don't see my kids again outside of our 24-day spring season. I don't see them again until August for competitive matches again. And it's just such a different animal. That's why you see in the college game, it's a much more direct game, much more rah-rah, much more get after it. And because I only have 15 days to prepare, it's just such a different animal. And it is refreshing to hear the way you guys are able to build and talk about it and throughout the year. And I love it. It's starting to make me miss coaching club soccer a little bit here. So
Well,
I don't know if I'm missing it too much.
Parent emails and then
Never mind.
You'll be happy where you're at.
Yeah. Good. So actually, Matt, talk about kind of the role of the parent and how you develop parents as much as you develop kids, with your culture and just talk about, how you're mindful of their investment in it and what's reasonable of them to expect.
I think being realistic with the parents, right, is the number one priority. So again, I would say, look, obviously you have stages of, I don't know if stages of parenting is the right word, but if it's your first child, right, your eldest child, you maybe didn't play sport, the game at the weekend is everything, right? So in the first stage, you say, look, it doesn't matter if we win at 8, right? It doesn't matter if your son's the best player or your daughter's the best player. So it's obviously teaching that side. Okay, well, here's what's important. So this is the framework of the club. Buy into it because obviously we have a good track record of developing players. I guess as you get to the VDA level, it really starts becoming, I think most of our parents are not necessarily concerned about winning. Again, obviously everyone wants to win, so I don't like not using that word in youth football. Winning is part of what we're doing. So, but I think the priority starts to shift towards their child, right? How does my son get to the next level? How does my daughter get to the next level? And obviously the team is a vehicle of that. So we need to make sure that we're developing lots of good players so the team can perform. So what we started to start educating them on is, okay, well, this is what you expect. And what we try to do is instead of pushing them away, Matt, I was, a couple of weeks ago, I'm just covering a few sessions for them because they have parent meetings. Getting them in together. So here's the expectations for the season. This is the reality of this group. This is what they can do if everyone's brought in. And then just managing the individual parents. We do individual development plans here, which gives us the opportunity to talk to the parents as well. So we're talking as a group, but as an individual. But I would say that the toughest part is on the college recruitment side, right? That's where it really starts to kick in. Again, that's sort of a there's some terrible things that happen with parents. That'll be clear, But the majority of, I always say, the majority of them, they've got their kids' best interest at heart. As long as we communicate well, 95% of them are going to be happy or at least understanding and support the process. Obviously, when you get to that 16, 17, 19 age group, then obviously they want their kids, like I have 3 kids, you want them to do well, but you got to have reality. I mean, not everyone is going to go to the top schools. In fact, probably no one's going to the top schools, right? It's one in a million almost. I don't know, not the statistics. I might be right. It might be 1 in a million is going to go to your top school. Mm-hmm. But what an opportunity to go play football, soccer for 4 years. So go find a school right for you. That's the difficultest conversation. Obviously, Matt, Mikey, as our directors, they're having them conversations. Obviously, when I've been in that role, that's not easy. So that education starts 15, 16, even before that, 14, 15, 16. You gotta know where you're at. And again, I used this a couple of weeks ago in a club meeting. Where are you? Are you 100% in? Are you 75% in? Are you 50% in? Are you 25% in? And all that percentages are fine, right? Don't expect to be at the top school, whatever division it is, if you're only 50% in, even 75% in, right? So again, I think that's always a good framework for the parent as well, because if your kid's 100% in, and if your kid's not 100% in, and you're doing a lot for them, they ain't going to end up well somewhere, right? They're going to go to college, they're going to fail because they can't do it on their own. So again, it's just open conversations. Again, it's not. I don't like the word parent education, right? Because we use that word, but they're just people, right? Just helping them through the process of them trying to do right for their child, And I think if you look at it from that perspective, most of your conversations are going to be positive ones, even if, we say there's crazy parents, but even with them, you find some common ground because, again, they are trying to help, just sometimes go the wrong way about it. So, educating them to a point that they can support the process, then helping them see what the pathway is for their kids. And again, look, I will say this, I feel like we'll never do enough for some people, right? We can do everything and it'll never be enough, and that's in every walk of life. So we tell our coaches, hey, look, as long as you're putting it all in, we've always got your back. Me and Quan, when someone complains about the program or complains about the coach, we know the work they put in, and we know what we're trying to accomplish, and we support our guys so they can do a good job.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with one word. You said the word reality. It's at the end of the day, if you're telling them the honest truth that you can give them, and of course you have relationships with college coaches and you're getting feedback, and they're going to find out the truth one way or the other. So you could either tell them on the front end, tell them this is where we're at, this is what I'm hearing, these are the schools that seem to be interested in you, or you could fudge, which I've unfortunately seen some programs do, where they'll say, no, this kid needs to do this, you're better than that. And then, they automatically just eliminate anything under that. And it's a frustrating thing. And, as far as the parents go, unless they're, in the know, most parents aren't. Most parents are like, this is my first kid going to school, or this is my first kid playing sports. We didn't, I've had so many moms and dads sitting here like, we don't know what's going on. We didn't play college athletics. And, so that's where, guys like you come in, where you have to tell them, like, this is exactly what's going on. This is exactly what I'm hearing. Otherwise, they're going to find out the hard way. And that's where you get in trouble. That's where you might have led them down a different path, which is, I know you guys don't do. You guys do a great job with that. And because parents only see one thing, they go, oh, well, little Johnny's one of the best players on one of the best teams. So Clemson, Duke, UVA, let's start with those schools and we'll work our way from there. It's, of course, that's nowhere near what the process is like. That's nowhere near reality. And so, lots of education, these are the different types of scenarios. That's massive for you. And you could absolutely, on my end, tell a huge difference. A kid that has come into my office, that has heard the right things from the people he trusts, because he can't hear it from me, and he doesn't want to hear it from mom and dad. So to hear it from you, to hear it from Quan, to hear it from Matt Rao, and to know like, hey, this is what I'm being told. They're talking directly to head coaches. This is where I'm at. This is what I see. And this is what the college landscape looks for me. I can tell a difference when that kid's in my office and I'm talking to him. And that's super appreciative. I mean, and the process has to start when they're 15 years old. I mean, this is kind of where you're trending. We're going to start watching you at 16. Even some of the, the top D1s are watching you at 15. So you probably need to have a good foundation by then anyways. So we're on the college coach side, super appreciative of that education that you're giving the kids and these parents.
I also think there's a misconception in our role, right, with the parents, that we're like agents. That we can pick the phone up and we can get their kid into a school, right? Again, we know all the schools. We have good relationships with them, and parents are like, well, why can't you just call them? And that's where the reality is. Hey, look, this is how you go to college. One, you do all the right things in terms of communication. Two, you actually have to play well when they're there. It's such a small detail, right?
Right.
It's the most important, and you may only have one window of opportunity to show that coach how good you are. And again, look, in an ideal world, college coaches can come to 20 games, right? But it's not the reality, right? It's They get 30 minutes. You've got to make an impact in 30 minutes, and if you don't do that, that might be your one shot. So again, we have to try and explain that to the parents a lot, is that they have to play well too. Like there's pressure. That is pressure, and there's no getting away from that pressure. And that's your decision you're making, right? I want to go play for a top school. And again, when I'm in top school, it could be any of the divisions. I just want to be clear with that. You got to play well. So deal with that pressure.
Right.
And obviously that's the difference, right? Even in my career, the best players, they just dealt with pressure. It was just playing another game, right? So again, we don't want to underestimate pressure, but also give them the reality of, okay, you got to do it. So that's a big one. I think that we're doing a better job with as we progress as a club. Is just the reality of, it is the individual. It is individual again, and obviously what do clubs sell? And I'd like to think we don't do this. If I'm wrong, correct me. We're not going. We're going to get you into college. No, we have a pathway to college. There's a difference. We're not saying we're just going to pick up the phone and someone's going to take it. No, we've had a pedigree, or we've had a tradition of sending players, which really should be the criteria of a good soccer club or a good development platform. Is okay, X amount of players have progressed through our ranks, and ideally, and in a perfect world for us, is they started at 6 years old with a club. And we just had a girl go to Florida State. She was with the program at 6 years old. There's nothing better than that. It's one of the best things. And again, we've got boys in this 06 group, and there's boys who obviously progressed already to college. But some of these boys have been with us since the start of VDA. So, and that really is the joy for us, is to bring our own players through. And what makes you get up in the morning is I'm out there and I still go to 6 and 7 year old sessions, and I'm coaching them like under 19 boys sometimes, because we want them to get there. And again, like I said, we talked about it a lot, but creating that platform will just make it so much easier for us, but it also makes it much easier for the college coaches that players have gone through a process. So it's I love the college side of it. I think it's great. And obviously it's offered a lot for me. I think it offers so much for so many kids to continue to play. We're trying to do our best to support the players, give them reality to it. But the biggest one for us is just don't miss the opportunity. And again, and obviously you grew up in this area, Justin. Obviously, we have a large Hispanic population, so we're trying to do a better job of educating the parents early on that this is a pathway to continue to play soccer, because obviously culturally they want to be professional. So DC United is the only option. Now we've got kids, probably our first generation of players coming through now that have had education from us. And now we've got Andres Rodriguez playing for VCU, right? We realised with our 01, 02 age groups that a lot of kids were just not progressing out of them ages, and a lot of the ones as well, they need to go play professional. It's professional or nothing. our 03, 04, 05, 06 groups coming through, obviously a very diverse group, they're going to go to college with good grades because we pushed it from an early age group. So again, we're excited for that on the boys' side. Obviously that's something that deliberately we did 5 years ago. So, well, we've got to get in earlier with making sure that your GPA is good, making sure that your attendance record at school is good. And again, that's regardless of ethnicity, is that the right word? We're making sure we're doing that at a young age group too, because obviously without the grades, without the attendance, you can't go on to college. So we're actually really excited about that with the next groups coming through.
Yeah, I mean that's of course massive. I mean, obviously we're recruiting good soccer players, but I have to graduate them too. You know, I mean that's such a huge thing. I mean, they talk about retention rate and graduation rate at good schools, and that's maybe not as important as trying to hoist a big national championship banner, but it's right there, and so that's a critical thing. And one of the bigger things I'm running into now is as college is getting very expensive now. And, are you guys having conversations with these kids on scholarships? And I mean, there's billions of dollars not used in scholarship every single year that have nothing to do with a merit-based or an athletic scholarship from the university. I mean, are there, I'm just curious, like, where is that information coming from to these kids? Are they mainly getting it from their guidance counselors, or is that something that you guys have started diving into? Because it's starting to turn into an issue.
I mean, it's a good point, that. I mean, here's what I'd say. I mean, obviously, my experience with guidance counsellors, and this is why I talked about, obviously, they're just changing our culture with the Hispanic parents specifically, educating them on, there's a pathway. As I went into some of these schools with some of these kids, and I was like, look, this kid has potential. Now, obviously, these kids were at the point where they needed some special help to really, extra assignments, whatever, to get their GPAs up. So maybe it was just a losing battle. And then, some of these guidance counsellors are telling me, well, they might need to be a pro instead of go to college, right? So my experience with the school system wasn't great when it came to going into. I went into Hilton, I went to Forest Park, I met with all of these early on, trying to change our way of getting kids. But, what I would say is what we tried to do with our relationship with college coaches, be very honest early on with where these kids are financially.
Sure.
So if there's anything that we can do to support them, to whether it's a language barrier, whether it's ability to use the computers, etc., communication, that we're supporting that. But what I would say is probably what you just mentioned now, might be going back to Matt Rao and saying, hey, what can we do extra to help these kids? Because again, it's a large part of it. And again, that's the unfortunate side of college soccer, is obviously you've got to pay for an education, right? I was fortunate. I came over here on a full scholarship. So it wasn't until I got married and my wife's got debt. I'm going, well, why did you do that? Why did you take all that on? Now I've got debt, so, obviously we want to help support whatever we can. So I think it's a great question, probably an action plan for us to look through.
Yeah. Matt, kind of to wrap it up, when you're thinking about the kids that have come through your program and have done, have gone on to the next level, what have been some of the common characteristics or attributes that they've had? And, talk about their work ethic and the extra kind of differentiating things that they did that helped them, move on and continue their careers.
Well, I'm going to use an example of a player, because I always say he's the best captain that ever played for VDA. So it was a lad called Kevin Ramos. He went to ODU. Unfortunately, he was just had terrible injuries, terrible luck, right? But he stayed through 4 years. When he was at the club, this kid, he was working to play, right? So in terms of character and desire, we always talk about this for the players. He was sacrificing everything just to be at training, right? Not football, just looking after himself, paying for himself to get there. He was working for the club, coaching. He did everything possible. In terms of character on the pitch, he was, I always say, he's the best captain, but just leadership, his ability to communicate with players, coaches, respectful off the pitch, ability to hold a conversation. And so when he went through the college process, he was talking to the coaches, him, not his parents, him. He was communicating with them, and he had more challenges than anyone else. So when we look at what does a player need to be in our pro, he needs to be Kevin Ramos. And again, he went to college, and now he's coming out of it. You know, he still comes back, helps the club. He started at Peterborough, so Peterborough player comes out, coaches, he calls for advice. He still has a growth mindset. He wants to learn and improve, and obviously he's taken them lessons into now workforce, right? And he's going to end up with a successful career. So, yeah, what does a kid need to be? What they need to be willing to sacrifice. They need to be willing to put in the effort. You know, they need to be able to listen, learn. And again, obviously, when you're dealing with 15, 16-year-old boys specifically, that's very challenging for them. You know, they're starting to get their own mind of how to do things. But, you know, that's the most important age group, 15, 16, going on to 17, is that you are still learning and improving and growing. And then finally, you're starting to take responsibility to communicate, because, you know, any college coach you speak to, the players that make the biggest impact are players that can communicate, right? You have a conversation with them, and it's not like talking to a child, it's talking to a young adult. And the amount of times I've seen our own kids talk to a college coach, you know, heads down, or you know, we're like, no, you don't do that. So we make a big deal. Again, I don't want to talk about what we do, but every player has to talk to the coaches when they come in. They have to shake hands. We do less shaking hands now, fist pumps, look in the eye. Because again, you developing humans, or developing people to go and be successful. So Kevin Ramos, you need to be Kevin Ramos. That's my answer to that question. You know, you ask anyone, Joe Seuss, Quan, anyone who's been involved with Kevin Ramos, we don't have anything else apart from good words to say about that kid. Even ODU, and also I know Tennant well. I played with Tennant. Another character. He never had anything bad to say when he's gone through his injury issues.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, he had a really tough time. He couldn't catch a break, but that you got to have that. You got to have lots of character, and you've got to be able to learn, and you've got to be willing to sacrifice.
it's interesting. You listed a lot of characteristics that are not very difficult to perfect, but it seems like, you know, a lot of kids nowadays struggle with that. I mean, looking in your eyes, shaking your hands, you know, responding, being respectful. Those are all easy. Those are free. You know, there's really nothing involved there other than, you know, putting your best foot forward and being respectful to people that are, you know, like older than you, or, you know, even equals or below or younger. It doesn't matter. I mean, just doing the best you can at all walks of life. And that's awesome. I remember that kid. And, you know, I would love to have had him myself, though. Those are definitely the kids that you remember forever. And that's an awesome way to describe him.
Yep. Well, Matt, thank you so much. I can see you doing a part 2. You're interesting to talk to, and your experiences are kind of exactly what this format is for. So I really appreciate it. Cheese, you got anything else?
No, thanks, Matt. I'm going to stick around, and I'm going to ask you a question or two about some players. So I don't want that thing going on long. So
all right, here, let me hit stop.